Okay, Joe, that's pretty much finalised at the moment. I've changed the names, changed quite a lot of the backgrounding, so you still go start custom wizard, but you now have a new one, Minitech Auto Flip plus rotary. Hit start. I've changed a bit of the wording around here, so I took out the JWX out of there, and I've just put that this wizard is an alteration of a Delft Spline System product, altered by me. So let's load the geometry. Playing with the half hoop at the moment, and go next. And you'll see I've also changed the top of the window dialogues. Now says Minitech Auto Flip, not JWX anymore. No rotations required. Nothing needed changing over there. So what I've done is I've also removed the words small clamp and large clamp, and I'm using a small area and a large area, simply because I'm not sure what size fixture you're going to be making, right? I've defaulted the thickness of the wax block to 6. Of course it will still error check, so if I went check now it would give me an error because this ring obviously is wider than that. So I'm going to say that I'm going to be using a let's say a 9mm block. Let's check everything's good. So next, none of these menus need to be changed, just the top up there, and you can just create supports as required. A minor concern at this point for me is, like I was saying in the first one, what if this support is in the way of your geometry from the side? So I know that most rings don't really go down there, and there's no way that any cutter of mine would ever reach where that support is in there, and so in this ring it's not really a big problem, but you never know. Anyway, so we go next. I'm not sure how to default this away from this cutter. I'm still working on that. And I'm going to put that on 50 micron, and we're going to go next, and let's move this out the way and go create the parts. Now when I create the parts, you'll notice that I dumped a whole bunch of parts from there, figured out how to get rid of them, and I've made some quite major changes in the rotation cutting and also in the roughing. Alright, so let's calculate them, and while they're calculating I'll have a look at your design here. So as I understand it, you're going to cut this from aluminium blocks and sheet, and then you're going to put a beam in underneath it, or are you going to slide this up and down there, so maybe put a bolt there and there for this to move up and down, but then you've still got to figure out how you're going to tram it over the center of your rotary. The system looks great to me. We need to figure out what you're going to do to hold the wax blocks, maybe a little spring pin or something over there. Then I presume that this is where your Oldham coupler is going to go, and then on the other side will be whatever hub we decide to use. I have to tell you that I had great success with the tapered hub. Have a look at the video on 3D CAD. Okay, let's see if this is finished pathing. It's got a couple of seconds to go. Let's have a look at this. So yeah, once you give me some finalized sort of sizes on what you think is going to work over here, I can remove one of those two dialogues about the clamp size. I figured out how to remove them, but I just thought that, you know, just in case you wanted to use a larger clamp size at some point, we'll leave the option in there. I can just grey them out so they're not visible. Come, you get finished calculating your silly thing here. Alright, let me know how you track with that, because I'd be quite interested in testing that to see how it works. I know this is just a rough CAD drawing, so we need to figure out how to get it onto the table, so you can leave a slab on the table and shim that slab so that this is, you know, straight to your rotary face, or straight on your table at least. I'm not still 100% sure how that Oldham or Ogam or whatever it is coupler of yours is going to work. Okay, let's go next. Now what I've done over here is I've taken away, this was the send toolpaths to your machine. I've taken away all the information about the JWX and inserted some information about Mach 3 doing a, you know, putting in your cutter, doing a home and probe, and that the wizard assumes you've set up your G54 offsets. Alright, so I'm going to presume most people know what they're doing when it comes to that. So you can either write the NC files now or continue. So the changes I've made, let's examine them. I'm going to, well, I'll show you the roughing. The roughing was very slow and very arduous. It was moving from very high above the ring and coming down in these long sort of plunges. So I've removed that, and I've also stopped the roughing from going over the sides. In total I've reduced the path time on these by about 60%. Okay, so they're running far more optimized at the moment, and you're still getting the advantage of having a roughing path in there. You see the first one stops about there somewhere, and the second one's going through. Alright. Then the finishing paths and the contour lines are pretty much left alone. They're not an issue. So let me show you what's happened with hang on with that. So with the roughing on these, let's turn that off and that off and that off. What I've done is I've created an extra bit of border, and I've told it to not stop on the top, protect surfaces, and come down over the side. So what that's going to do for us is going to cut away a little bit extra border, so if you want to slide a saw blade in, you'll be able to get in there. Alright, and I've also optimized the way that this roughing works. In total, I would say from the time we started this, I've optimized the speed on this wizard by at least 50% total. And I've taken away, like I said, all the extra stuff, so all you've got left in there is your arbor. Okay, so that's going to go down in layers to 0. Chip, 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 chip down there. Let me set this to ghosted, so you can see what's happening in there, and it will do the same on that side with that arbor. Alright, so let's turn this on and turn those off, and you'll see the arbors going in from the other side. When I actually cut this, the arbor just fell out and there was a snug fit, so I don't see any reason to change what we know works at the moment. And pretty much, mate, that's that. So everything's been renamed. The wizard has its own home now. It's all been called mini tick. You can rename that to whatever you want depending on how we work with the fixture. That should all be that, mate. Contact me about the finalized files and you can play with it. Cheers, Chris.